Greetings, this is Matt Horsley, and this is the team presentation for scaling up your venture without screwing up. I wanted to say thank you to Professors Huggy Rao and Bob Sutton for a interesting and fascinating course. The scaling challenge I'd like to discuss today, it relates to a later stage company and specifically a professional services firm. Our challenge is how to move our management model, which I'll discuss in a second, the elements of that. How do we move a management model focused on historical bureaucracy and the way we coordinate our activities, and how we move that to a more agile model? And this challenge actually incorporates two courses. This course, the principles of this course, and then another online course I've taken called Managing the Company of the Future by Julian Birkinshaw of London Business School. And the course is about really what the management model is. There's really four elements, and that is how are decisions made, how are activities coordinated, how are people motivated, and how objectives are set throughout the organization. And this challenge relates to how activities are coordinated, the second element, and as I mentioned earlier, moving from bureaucracy to agility. And bureaucracy is based on rules and procedures, and typically has silos, slower decision making, and we'd like to move that management model more to an agile-based model, which tend to be associated with nimble teams, quick decision making, empowerment, resilience, flexible talent, moving into different roles. So that's the general challenge. And applying some of the course's principles to this challenge, our mindset that we are establishing to solve this challenge really revolves around 5 words. It's relate, share, perform, solve, and adapt. And these are really the buzzwords that our employees are going to focus on when thinking about this new organization design to agility. Some of our sacred behaviors are knowledge sharing, collaboration, a willingness to say no to activities that create complexity, adaptable, resilience, rolling up your sleeves. And taboo behaviors are hoarding information, delegating for managers without communication of why people are doing certain activities, an over-reliance on hierarchy for decision making. We want to remove a number of the political games that have existed in the past. We want to avoid individuals who hide from problems. Another principle the course covered was the replication principle of the continuum of Catholicism and Buddhism. The Catholicism essentially describing what do we want to replicate across different offices of our service firm. And we've come to an agreement on we want to replicate our governance committee structure across regions. We want to maintain our strict talent sourcing process of finding elite talent. We want to maintain our team structures of tight-knit, socially close teams. Our client onboarding process we'd like to replicate, and some of the methods we're going to allow for local variation, which is the Buddhism philosophy, is our regional strategic planning processes. We want our regions not to focus too much on the centralized top-down objectives. Reporting and compliance will be focused on regionally, and then another area will be our employee compensation and incentives will have to adapted to the local markets. Our metaphor for change, our hot cause, if you will, is essentially the organization man theory was kind of the man of the bureaucratic firms of the past. And there was a book written on that by, I believe, William White. And we want more team of teams approach. There's two books, one from Stanley McChrystal, Generally Stanley McChrystal, that came out in 2014 or 15, and that's called Team of Teams, and then another by professors from University of Southern Cal called Organization Agility, or it's called the Agility Factor, and it's those are concepts that we're going to shape, and we want more of those ideas and less of Organization Man. And some of our cool solutions, really it's going to start off with a task force that we're going to select to start to create these new agile behaviors that we want in the future. And they're going to meet on what we're going to call Future Fridays and Simplify Saturdays. And they're going to start to really coalesce around a lot of these ideas and really select and prioritize a few initiatives we'd like to change our structure from a bureaucratic structure to an agile structure. Another principle is cutting cognitive load. That was one of the scaling principles, and we're going to focus on reducing complexity through job crafting, simplifying key metrics, identifying bottlenecks in repetitive processes. We're going to see if we can standardize a few more reports and presentations, and we're going to increase access to key experts so people can find expertise when needed. We'll do that through our IT or lists or just general awareness initiatives. Finding key talent and keeping that talent accountable, that was another scaling principle. I won't get into too much of that for fear of going too long here, but we're going to update our talent acquisition criteria to focus more on the traits of agility and the speed of decision making. So we're going to look for different types of people. We're going to use internal multipliers. We're going to find those key adaptable people who have demonstrated success in the agile behaviors, and we're going to look to them to spread that mindset. We're going to travel light. It's a concept developed by Edward Lawler from Southern California. Maybe it wasn't developed him, but I read it in one of his books, and Built to Change. And we're going to try to increase our talent agility by looking at more opportunities to buy talent, then keep talent around for 20 years, assuming that's good for both the organization and for employees. We're going to need to modify our succession planning paths as well. And then regards to accountability, great talent needs to be held accountable as well. We want zero tolerance for kind of old, static, not invented here behaviors. We want, as I briefly touched on, we want to invest more in knowledge sharing applications through our information technology group. We want to have strict goals for our job crafting outcomes. We want to reduce complexity but focus more on the strengths of our key employees. And we want to create some disincentives for taboo behaviors. And lastly, how are we going to connect and cascade these principles throughout the organization in order to scale up agile behaviors across the globe? We're going to use, as I initially touched on, task forces. We're going to use knowledge brokers, and we're going to use multipliers, people who can have strong influence in the organization, and we're going to seek to build a new operating rhythm throughout the company over time. So these are the 4 or 5 principles that we touched on in class: reducing complexities, finding great talent, holding them accountable, spreading the right mindset, and the new behaviors associated. The hot cause, as I mentioned, is really focusing on sort of the special forces, agile behaviors over the organization man, and finally seeking to replicate what works. So that's our plan, and I enjoyed the course as well as our team. Thank you to the professors, and I look forward to implementing this plan in the future.